How's it going tonight, everyone? It is my pleasure to bring legendary market analyst Gene Inger back to the show. He's been on the show many times and he's brought all kinds of insights and market perspective to our show, and audience loves him. So welcome, Gene. Welcome back to the show. Let's talk stocks and let's talk the market and what's been going on.
Thanks, Majid. Thanks for inviting me back. And I don't know with the current activity in the market if I can justify the accolades, although I appreciate it. And it's been an incredible market, and I don't think it's going to be an incredible decline, but people are really thinking it's a little sketchy and extended, but it's not a ubiquitous kind of a situation. Neither are many stocks so overbought or so oversold. And you and I both know that they attribute the start of a risky time now, not only to seasonality, but to outgoing Federal Reserve Chairman Powell with his comment that would be the equivalent of an irrational, exuberant kind of comment. And actually, I would dispute that by simply beginning this comment by saying the market is not irrationally exuberant. Certain stocks became irrationally exuberant, but there's actually been a fairly healthy broadening below the level of those leading stocks.
I want to start also by sending people to you. So if they want to connect with Gene, first of all, you're over on X. So I'm going to put that on the screen, and that's Stockseer on X. Is that correct? So stock and then SEER.
Yes, don't send it to my home unless the quantum stocks go a lot higher.
And then also, Gene is author of the Inger Letter, which is a market coverage.
If you want to subscribe to me, just do the daily briefing and look at my comments on X, Twitter, which are free. Absolutely. This is a point in my life where I'm trying to give back a little bit. And if there's an educational or enlightening value, like when I've been talking about what happens, I'm going to do that on the weekend report. Options on, for example, if I may, quantum computer stocks that we bought a year ago, and maybe they are expiring in January. Well, and I can see that because I looked at it today, I could take one and I could roll it forward from January of 26 to January of 2027, and I would pay nothing because it's selling at the same price. The bid and ask were the same price. So I was thinking of doing that, then I realized, whoa, wait a minute, that's a long-term gain that I would be taking in 2025 by selling the one I have, the option I have now. But I don't know if everybody realizes that you need to actually wait till January to roll an option that expires in January to 2027 if you want to avoid the gain occurring in this tax year and have the use of the funds tax-free for another year. I never discuss this kind of detail, but rumor has it we've had a pretty good year, especially with quantum, and there's a desire to both not be greedy, be represented for the future, but also to a little bit of capital preservation after all this work of the past year.
That seems like a really good spot to start. And my question for you would be, the Fed had these comments, right, that he gave his remarks and said stocks seem very highly valued, or I don't remember his exact terminology, but the stock market didn't like it. Obviously, major indices didn't like it. 30 minutes later, there was some dumping. And then we also saw today, the broader market was pretty red. So do you think that stocks are overvalued, or do you think that the comment was out of place or out of turn?
Well, it wasn't out of place. You could be out of turn because he's outgoing, and you should ask the opinions of the candidates who might get appointed.
That's fair.
Quite frankly, if you mean it that way. But I think the comment was inaccurate. I think it is selectively extremely overpriced. And by the way, I don't consider we had much decline. S&P was off 0.28%.
That's
today.
A massive dip.
That is not. You're not. The S&P futures this evening are up 5 handles, 500. So what this is telling you at the moment, the market is digesting it. Certain pundits have appeared on television to tell everybody how they've got to get out of all the speculative stocks and should only hold the quality stocks. And the irony is it's sort of happening the other way. People get mad at me when I said at one time that I would schnitzel or ring the cash register on some Nvidia and some Apple at one time and some Tesla at one time. And guess what? 2 of those I actually own from a long time ago, a little bit of, in a retirement account. You don't go broke taking profits, number one. Number 2, it doesn't mean you're against the company just because you take something off the table a little bit.
I think that's a perfect topic for this moment right now, because a lot of quantum investors specifically, and I'll get if I don't ask this question, Gene, then they'll be like, what the hell are you doing? I know I can see the subscriber comments already. So all these quantum stocks have been running like crazy. So it started on Analyst Day with IonQ, and we've seen them take turns. We've seen Rigetti, I think, hit $33, maybe $34 a share today. Mind blowing. And IonQ's trading around $75, $74 a share. Why is this happening? Is it too much too soon? And what's your opinion on it? What's your opinion on taking profit here? Or
I'm listening to you, but I'm looking at my charts real time. Rigetti hit 34.40, and this evening it's 30.38 on the ask, 141 million shares. D-Wave, which I know we both sort of favor, I think you do. It was up 20 cents today, finished at 27.72, hit 29.18. It's 27.05 now. That's not much of a pullback, and it's still even within the upward channel. Your rising bottoms trend line is still there. You could drop to 23, which is only the low of 3 days ago, and guess what? Your uptrend is still intact. You know that. So, but yeah, I know you mentioned, because I listened to your video on the way back from the gym, and you mentioned that you bought some protective puts. That's not necessarily a bad idea. And the only dispute that I would have would be I would do it not on the stocks that are the new generation, but on the old generation. I would have been more inclined to do it with an Nvidia or something like, or an Oracle, although I like Oracle, or Qualcomm, although I like Qualcomm. Christian Amand, I met him in Berlin, and he actually told me not to buy their original folding Samsung cell phone because they had you'll know this as an IT guy, they had a jerry-rigged chip sandwich combination, and then they broke that into a single chip, SoC, system on a chip, the following year. And he actually told me, and with other reporters standing around, he told me, wait for the next version. Usually guys trying to sell cell phones don't say that. So I respect him because of that. He was president of Qualcomm, and he still is. But anyway, what am I trying to say? How do I feel about it? I think the pundits on TV who say you can't own these stocks because they're not making profits yet. Now you tell me, did they say that? They didn't say about Nvidia because they made graphics chips to compete with AMD and so on for many, many years. But can you say that about Palantir before they grew? Can you say that about a few, I don't know which stocks, but a lot of these companies didn't show significant revenue until they were already expensive stocks. Is that not the case?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point that you bring up some different stocks outside of quantum. And I think the main and valid argument is just that the revenues aren't there yet with your IonQs, with your Rigettis, with your D-Waves. So I think myself and others are just trying to understand what's happening, because we've seen, right, a lot of us were investing in quantum stocks in December of 2024 when a lot of them went up really fast, and then Jensen made his comment, the rug was pulled, the next morning you woke up and you had half of your investment or 60%. And I think there's some fear that, oh, there's going to be another event like that. But even Jensen himself has changed. I see you shaking your head. So walk me through your thoughts about all of this.
You're doing fine.
Yeah, walk me through.
I'm going to review you.
And instead of saying walk me through, like I need some therapy, like I've been, walk us through kind of how to think about the highly speculative quantum trade and the fact that lately it's been doing so well.
You'll love this answer. I'll walk you through it by the people food that I have for tomorrow, where this happens at my age. I'm going through what's called a heart nuclear stress test. And my apprehension about being wheeled down the hallway right to the cath lab or something like that is, fingers crossed, greater than what's actually likely to happen. But that's why you keep your underlying stock and you buy a put option, just in case you're going to get wheeled down the hall. Hopefully, we'll be in touch within a couple of days. If we're not, I need to take my laptop with me. But but in any event, sometimes the expectation and the fear is greater than what's going to happen. This is not a Jensen moment. You just said that Jensen himself has switched his pitch with regards to quantum. I think there is an issue that can put pressure on those other stocks that isn't being sufficiently discussed. There's so much talk that, well, the market be in trouble if the quantum guys are right, i.e. power efficiency, less power consumption, less need for gargantuan data centers. If that's the case, then Microsoft has it right. They delayed some of their spending on that, by the way. And of course, they have their own chip that they're working on. What am I thinking? I'm thinking that the risk is in the nuclear stocks, the power stocks, the idea that the grid is impossibly crippled to be able to handle what's coming with AI. And I'm saying, well, that can't be the case. It can't be allowed to be the case. And they've all forgotten Moore's law. And I don't think you have forgotten Moore's law.
So, Gene, first, you're going to have to remind me about Moore's law. And second, and more importantly, hopefully everything goes well with your procedure. Hopefully everything is routine.
No procedure.
I like how you brought that metaphor into being a quantum investor, having a heart stress test. I feel like it's very potent, their analogy. Go ahead and give a quick reminder on Moore's law and why you brought it up, because I did not have that at the top of my head.
Gordon Moore is the co-founder of Intel, and his idea was, I think it was every 2 years, it might have been 3 years, that computing power would double.
Right.
Power efficiency would improve. So basically, you ended up with better x86 processors, more DRAM, and lo and behold, I mean, and here is iPhone 17 Air, which has more, which is the battery life could be better. This has more power than was on the computers on the shuttle, or much less the Apollo. And I don't know that people realize that when it comes to quantum, what they'll typically say is that, well, there's the error correction factor. Well, they used to say that about memory as well, and matching the clock speed and so on. And they used to say that, well, I mean, that's going to get resolved. Do you think that? Well, I'll ask you. Do you think the error rate issue is in itself a sufficient inhibitor of the progress of quantum chips?
I still think that quantum companies have their work ahead of them to overcome some of the scientific hard barriers. Not that they are impossible to overcome. I think you see like companies like Quantinuum, IonQ, PsiQuantum, they've accelerated their roadmap. They've revised their roadmap. So they believe that they will be able to produce more powerful quantum computers much more quickly than even at the start of this year. So it does seem, from just a sheer, while we are right on the edge of it, it does seem that things are moving in the direction where they will be available. And also with Rigetti, Rigetti released a 36 qubit chip, and now they have also said they will have a 100 qubit chip by the end of, and it just has to start somewhere. And I've had a little bit of a sleepy day, so I don't know why I wasn't like Moore's law was at the top of my head. But what's interesting is Moore's law may not apply with quantum. Well, in fact, it most likely won't, because every qubit in a quantum computer adds exponentially more computing power. So when you have more, it's not like the sort of doubling every 2 years. The chart is going to look much more exponential as far as power is.
You know what? I agree with you completely. What I really meant to say was simply that the classical computing or the Blackwell processor that NVIDIA has, they're going to have to either modify that or combine it. And I know there's some research of that area with quantum. Quantum doesn't have to have the doubling of power. It's the point that you cannot elevate it's going to be so powerful that it obviates or minimizes the need for classical computing to double and triple and quadruple.
So that's kind of what you're alluding to, that there's not enough potential criticism to the threat of the quantum technology being so powerful. And you had like that it could potentially replace or make those obsolete. And IonQ CEO was saying something to that effect by 2027. And
Really?
now I don't necessarily believe that's the case. That's not right now the narrative that we talk about on the channel. We just talk more about how they'll be used together, especially in supercomputer and data centers.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think they will. I think they will be.
But your view is that NVIDIA is directly threatened.
Well, no, they know my view is they know they're going to be directly threatened, so they are moving into that realm to cover their CYA, basically. And by the way, I think that us discussing this, right or wrong, I'm not a computer analyst, but I do think everybody else, almost everybody that's on YouTube channels, they look at trend lines, rejection, support and resistance levels. Most people can look at a chart at this point if they have any experience in the market, and they sort of see that. I think there's some value to our chit-chatting about the backdrop, because the chart patterns can be interesting, and they'll tell you whether the degree of probability of short-term risks and moves maybe. But what they won't tell you is the business of the company. And you really want a chart that is driven by the prospects of the company, not simply the pattern of the chart. If you're looking, you see the business prospects of a company improving, but you see the price behavior being sort of negative or boring. I can give you a bigger stock that I just added to our list this week if you want an example. I don't mean to.
But sure, let's hear about the stock that you're talking about.
The stock that I just wrote up, we've watched it for weeks. We didn't pull the trigger. Now we pulled the trigger a couple days ago. Well-timed, coincidentally. And it's Redwire Space. Do you know it?
Nope.
Our symbol is RDW. And Redwire is not a small company. It's a wannabe L3 Harris or Lockheed. They make satellites. They make sensors. They have, they're out of Jacksonville, but they've got facilities in several countries. Without going into great detail, they got a significant contract, I think Air Force, and it didn't do anything. And I'd say this is an example. Well, Bain Capital in Boston was a seller, supposedly, but not because they don't like the stock, but because they had a certain fund they had to return money to their investors. So that's what took the stock down. So $26 a share came down to $8. Where did we put a buy in? And it went 8, sideways, sideways, sideways. I recommended it. It's 9 and change now. So that's not huge, but that's a nice 15% move in 2 days.
Seems interesting for sure.
We had moves that were interesting in two stocks that I know I think I introduced you to. One was Veritone and the other was Ondas.
Beautiful. Because we're gonna finish this interview with a lightning round. So we're gonna talk about 3 stocks.
Okay.
We're We're going to give 5 minutes to each stock because I know both of us have to get out of here. But
okay,
let's start with your choice: BigBear, Veritone, or Ondas.
Redwire to BigBear, because I had to say this one sentence and then I'll shut up. There was a story out 2 weeks ago, and it's part of what got my attention, that BigBear is working with Redwire to run the communication satellite low Earth orbit network that's being developed, hence Air Force and Space Force. And guess what? The CEO, Peter Canito of Redwire, just happens to be the chairman of the board of BigBear AI. So okay. How's that transition?
That's a great transition. I think that's a 10 out of 10. No notes on that one.
Thank you.
So BigBear got this new contract. BigBear is a stock that I even talked about on the channel last night. It just has almost a cult following at this point. The last earnings, the last earnings were disappointing,
Doesn't
obviously. But when I had you on the show last, you basically said doesn't change the underlying thesis for the stock. So what now?
If the third quarter is bad, same story. It's an opportunity to enter, not exit the stock. Okay. As was the case last time. They're cleaning up the finances. They were sloppy. They had poor financial engineering. And McAleenan, who's the CEO now, has spent most of the year trying to sort that out, besides developing business. And when the Army cut back on one contract, some guys on YouTube said, oh, they lost the military contract. They didn't lose it. The Army cut back a particular contract. They're not going to use their vendor if they are, what happened on the screen? I see charts.
So I just pulled up, you mentioned that their financial situation. So they were in quite a lot of debt, almost $250 million of debt from 21 to 24. I mean, it looks like they've considerably bolstered their cash position while eliminating debt. So that's something that you like to see on the.
I would be surprised if the third quarter, because of the aviation income, was surprisingly good. I wouldn't be surprised if it was bad. And either way, I think it's a $20 stock next year. So how's that?
Dang. Okay. That's a big call.
15 to 20. Okay. I'll be conservative.
So what do you like? What is so for BigBear? I know a lot of people that follow this channel also invest in BigBear. So what gets you excited about this company in particular still, even after the disappointing earnings?
Actually, the volatility excites me because it is probably the most popular stock among retail investors now. That was not the case when I originally discovered this thing like 3 years ago or longer. Right. And I've been out of it several times. Now I'm solidly in it. And at some point, maybe I'll write options on it. I don't know that I want to sell the stock. I can protect myself. I can have some deep in the money puts that are without risking too much, but I'm not even inclined to do that. I realize it hit 8 and change yesterday, and now it's down to 7 and change. That's the nature of a stock when you have that much retail participation. And by the way, BlackRock is not stupid, and they've been buying, not selling. And Goldman Sachs, I believe, bought some, not selling. Is this where you say the pros are buying and the schmoes are selling?
I'm just enjoying the ride, and it has been a bumpy ride with BigBear since late 2024, but it just seems to be the nature of this company. Any closing thoughts on BigBear before we move to?
Yeah, I was just going to open the chart and look at a 90-day chart on it instead of looking at hourly and just day to day. You do that. You do a very good job overall, by the way.
I appreciate that.
And I appreciate the focus on quantum, which you're educated. You're not a quantum engineer,
no,
as such, but you're doing it. But nobody else is doing this online. I think there's one other site that tries to talk about it. And by the way, there's another quantum stock that is about to go public. Do you know about that?
So it's Infleqtion, right?
Yeah, that's
and
yeah.
CCCX. They're going to move into that ticker. Is that right?
Yeah, and it's a two-man operation. One guy is running. If that's a SPAC, you know, that's Special Purpose Access Corporation, Acquisition Corporation. The problem with SPACs is the people that have the money in it originally typically sell into the initial trading when it goes public, unless there's a lockup. They say, I've read the filing, they say there will be a lockup, that all initial shareholders will have a lockup. The problem with lockups, I could give you an example, Facebook, which is now Meta. When it came out and it ran to $64 a share, and I said, I'll buy it if it's under 20. 6 months later, when the lockup ended, and my cousin Zuckerberg and others, yeah, he's third cousin, dumped the stock all the way down, and it hit $18 a share. And I actually told my people, okay, now you can buy Facebook. I don't know if they're going to make it or not. I guess they made it as a business, but now you can buy it. And by the time, and people fought that. That's an example of a company that wasn't necessarily profitable and had a lot of money spent on gearing up and developing. And by the way, that's a company that is part of why Jensen does not want anyone focusing on quantum, because he had 600 billion or what, 600 million from Zuckerberg for data centers for Blackwell, just for Blackwell chips. And you know, if Zuck was to start believing, maybe I should be working with D-Wave instead of with Nvidia, then why is he spending 600 million? Jensen needs that sale, and it also creates a credibility for what they're doing. I'm not saying Blackwell's not good and it won't work. Of course it will work. I'm simply saying in computing, there's usually something down the road that supersedes what everybody was using before.
Yeah, and something that I mention pretty often, and I think it's worth mentioning, is in the tech world, adapt or die. And it's not a slow death. It's a very fast death. If you get caught, and that's the trick with being a giant, right, is you also have to be nimble. And if you get caught, like steering that big ship, right, is a lot harder than that pontoon boat.
So I'll ask you, so we're talking about, we wasn't in our plan, but we brought up Infleqtion. Would you be a buyer, which you could, of the small SPAC stock, which is doing the deal, and it may or may not happen, it still has to be approved. Would you be a buyer of that, or would you wait, let it go public, let the dust settle, let the early people come out of it, and then see how they're doing?
I haven't decided yet, to be honest, and I need to do more research, so I don't know enough yet.
Me too.
Yeah.
So do the research, and I'll listen to your video about it.
So we have 10 minutes left here, and we're going to spend 5 on each stock. So let's go with Ondas. So Ondas Holdings is a stock that you first brought up to me here on the channel. You brought up to your readers, and I remember specifically, I said, hey, I bought a lot of Ondas today. And you said, I hope you didn't buy it too expensive, when I was making a big buy order at $2.40.
Well,
the
for
stock,
me, that
the stock is almost $8 a share now. So almost
$7.40 now this evening.
What was that?
$7.40 at this evening.
So a triple in just a couple months on just that stock. And hopefully I'll be able to speak to the CEO of Ondas and ask some questions soon. But tell me about Ondas. Why has there been such positive sentiment and so much investment in this company?
Well, if it goes to $15, you owe me lunch.
Deal.
Ondas is pretty much becoming an integrated defense stock. It's not simply a drone play. And that's why I didn't even name my 1 or 2 other drone plays, which are small companies, although they're involved. One of them's already involved with Ondas. Maybe I need to mention that, because Ondas invested $4 million in LightPath. Ultimate Machines, in which Trump's son, one of them, is on the board, invested $4 million in LightPath. Ultimate Machines leased a 17,000 square foot facility for manufacturing 5 minutes from where I live. Ultimate Machines makes the high-speed motors, not from China, will be made in Florida. Lightpath makes the cameras and optics, and Ondas makes the drones, and they've signed a contract with a Detroit company for contract manufacturing. So far, you can have people go on TV or YouTube and say, well, the money's not there, income isn't there. My God, look what they're building. Look what they're assembling. Look who they hired. They hired a retired U.S. Army general, formerly Special Operations Command, U.S. Army, and he was in charge of AI, by the way. And then they hired the guy who was the former CIA officer in Europe, who is now going to run Estonia and London. And they hired a retired colonel from the Royal Army, the British Army, who will run the London operations and marketing. And they invested in Rift, which is a Norwegian company that makes a small personal like backpack of a soldier drone called the Wasp. And they already have a contract to sell some of those to the U.S. Army. So multi-layered. The Iron Drone, which is their main product, is a drone in a box to be launched. The New York Police Department was said to be looking at it. Probably, maybe so is, I don't know. And then I heard the fire department in New York's looking at it. Why? Police precincts are not as frequent. Fire stations are every couple miles around a city. You could put an Iron Drone in a commercial version, I'll explain that, which is called the Optimus. You could put one on the roof of every fire station, and they can respond quickly as needed. It doesn't have to be a fire, accident, crime, whatever it is.
Fascinating.
Something like the Wasp could be used by policemen. Again, it doesn't have to be militarized. Instead of waiting for air support from a helicopter, you just pull it out of the trunk of your patrol squad car and launch it. And watch it on your iPhone or Samsung if you prefer, and see what it's doing. The commercial version, it's already proven. Where is it proven? Dubai. The Dubai Police Department, not Army, ordered the second round of products from Ondas as the Optimus, and they're not attacking anyone. The Iron Drone, but it's the same idea. If there's a suspect drone, something that needs to not be there, like around airports, it throws a net out. So it's what they call capture or kill. It can capture an incoming drone with a net, small drones, or it can ram it and basically destroy it if it's a bigger one that's too hard to capture or too evasive or what have you. Furthermore, it's autonomous, and they've hired engineers that run autonomy. Why does that matter? Because enemies' systems are sometimes able to subvert and bypass the radio frequency control, encrypted or not. So you may want autonomous. Also, they bought a fiber optic company in Israel. Did you hear about that?
And I haven't done my homework.
Okay. Fiber optics can trail it up to 40 miles of fiber lines. And they've been doing that in Ukraine already, trying to attack the Russian front line with drones that are controlled by fiber, and the Russians can't jam it. And that's why one of the reasons Ukraine has had some success against the formidable, quote unquote, Russian army. I say formidable because maybe they're a paper tiger. Okay, they asked Eric Brock, who you maybe have the pleasure of talking to him one of these days soon. You've mentioned that. Eric was asked the question yesterday when the Oslo airport and Copenhagen, Denmark, airports were closed. Ground stops, diverted flights, Delta, Swiss Air, British Airways, SAS, all had to divert flights because there was drone activity. They haven't said so, but probably Russian. And that's pretty deep into Western Europe, by the way, if they're doing that. The Russians say no. Well, who else is sending drones? So they asked Eric Brock, can Ondas help with this and deploy Iron Drone, which doesn't have to blow up anything. You don't have to have everything explosive, but just capture it, figure out what this is. And his answer was, yeah, we are deploying to airports. He didn't identify what airports, but he said plural airports.
Yeah. So there's a whole lot going on, and the company has a ton of momentum. And I just learned like 7 different things just hearing you talk about them for just 5 minutes. So that's
also
amazing.
Ask Eric, what about swarms? And if you get swarms, this is why you have layered defense. Look at what they're doing with Israel. You have your significant THAAD or even American Patriot missiles to intercept the Syria stuff. You've got the microwave and even broad sweep lasers that can jam or even destroy smaller drones. And the ones that get through, maybe we can capture them with an Iron Drone. And that's what, I mean, I'm just throwing out the
Sure.
category, the various methods of defense, which is a layered defense. And,
Awesome.
and that's what, and there's a good role for them. Furthermore, maybe we'll wrap up on this by reminding everyone that there's 2 other things they're doing, which I didn't mention. So we'll give you 9 instead of 7 things to think about. One is ground robotics. They just invested in another firm that does ground robots. So now we're on the ground. Well, what are we trying to become? Lockheed here? I don't know what they're. I mean, I see the goal. And the final number 9 for you then is going to be wireless rail network. The U.S. has approved the, I don't know, what was it called, 802.16t, something like that, which is the wire, which is mandated for all the American freight lines that are going to have to use this. And there's only 2 companies that are in good contention to get the award. I can't guarantee they'll have it, but you know who their marketing partner is for this? Siemens, the giant European company. So, and bless you. I think this, if you want me to be crazy about this, I'm talking $15, $20 stock for BigBear. How about $15 to $20 stock for Ondas? Simply, if they get the rail contract from the, I don't know if from the DOT or whether it's individual rails that have to work with them. I know they had a pilot project with this, with the metro system in Boston and apparently in Chicago. So where is this going? And that has nothing to do with drones. It's a whole separate division.
Yeah.
Then they'll spin it off and we'll have stock in that for free.
Well, I appreciate all of the information about Ondas, and I definitely have more research and learning to do about the company. Quickly, we are out of time, but I do want to do a quick touch up on Veritone. So they have been doing also very well. Their stock was around $2, $2.50, and the stock is now around $5.50, $6 in the market and has been in a bull trend. What do you think of Veritone? What are some quick thoughts from you?
It sold off a little bit today from 640 down to 546. It's 564 this evening, so it's up 20 cents or so already. The market is still open on the Pacific. So what are my thoughts? I don't know. I'm in it at $1.35 to 45. I gave my readers a buy zone of 135 to 150. You're in there somewhere around there, and I haven't sold any. If that tells you anything, I don't know what kind of contracts are they going to get. Veritone, all they have to do is get through whatever tax selling there is, and if the CEO who you interviewed, if he delivers a third of what he talked about, you're going to have the stock at 10 to 15. It looks like all of these $4 to $5 or $7 stocks we're talking about are going to 15 to 20 in my mind.
I hope so. If we don't have some massive market change, right? If the macro backdrop, and I think that's the note we'll end on, is a lot of assumptions are made in these conversations, and these are all forward-looking statements, right? We believe in the very specific macro market conditions we have at present day, based on the information we know, these stocks could go up. But if we were to enter into a bear market, a risk off market, or had some sort of big financial event or something that really shook the markets, then a lot of these stocks would probably not be going north or going up. So it's just important to keep in mind as far as risk management.
You limit leverage and be a little bit careful is what you're basically saying. But I still think, based on what we know, that should there be an October surprise shakeout in the market, that more importantly is a buying opportunity rather than a selling opportunity. And one wants to have sufficient buying power, cash on hands, lack of leverage, whatever it is, or at least enough to buy some options, if nothing else, if the market does get a crunch. Do I expect it? Not necessarily. And this is part of the dilemma. Many of the stocks that you and I are talking about are now at a time of year when not only are they the new era compared to the old era that I tanned a little bit, but they are where they hope to get awards, federal contracts, aviation contracts, shipping contracts, drone contracts, what have you. That could coincide with a heavy time in the stock market, could it not? And if that happens, yin and yang. Could you have the S&P down and those stocks up? Yes, but providing the S&P's heaviness isn't all encompassing and just creates a panic. Because if there's a panic, then people shoot first and ask questions later. Something I said in August, I said either September will be down or October may be down. May, not necessarily will, because you have these other circumstances. You have the expectation of a monetary policy that's friendlier. You may get a trade deal with China. You may avoid a war with Russia, hopefully. We'll see. Sure, there's the risks that are out there. But historically, if there's going to be a decline in the fall, it occurs in one of those 2 months, not both. Either September or October, but not both. If you get a September decline, any weakness in October is a buy. If you don't get a decline in September, and we really didn't, the last days, then October is more risky. But if the financial background stays as is, which is why you have all these analysts trying to recommend bank stocks now, then the market will be a buy, not a sell, and you'll move up into the first quarter. And that obviously is what the administration wants to see. And you do have a transactional president. If whatever other faults he has, he does know that, and he is cognizant of the stock market, and that's not necessarily a bad thing.
So, Gene, pleasure as always.
Thank you.
You are on X as Stockseer. I'm going to put it on the screen and send people over your direction if they'd like to get connected with you. Also, I personally received the Inger letter and I read it almost every night unless I have too many things going on, but I love to see the effort that you put into it and all the information that's provided. So thanks for coming on the show and being a regular contributor here. This isn't a paid partnership or anything like that. We're just buddies that are talking about stocks. So it's fun to have you. Thank you so much. If you'd like to support the YouTube channel and the website, I do offer memberships starting at $4.99 a month. Your support really helps. If you head over and check out the membership levels, there's Quantum Bull at $4.99 a month, the Golden Bull at $14.99 a month, and the Diamond Bull at $49.99 a month. And if you check out our Discord, it is really fun. We talk about a lot of different things and we have specific channels for specific stocks. You get an alert in our video drops channel for every members video and non-members video. I highly recommend joining if you want to and if you're able.